All right, thank you so much. Okay, we will also be using Slido in this next presentation, so keep an eye out for the slide at the end. We have gotten to the Princeton Review Mental Health Survey portion of our day. In October, the Princeton Review, in partnership with the Ruderman Family Foundation, released the results of a nationwide survey aimed at promoting and enhancing mental health resources on college campuses. The project gathered insights from college administrators on the availability and scope of mental health and well-being services at their institutions. It also surveyed students at more than 200 colleges and universities to better understand their perspectives on campus mental health resources. The Princeton Review then incorporated mental health and wellness data into its school profiles and recognized 16 institutions on its mental health service honor roll. So we're fortunate today to hear from the key figures behind that effort. Dr. Hannah Shaul Bar-Nisim is Deputy Director, U.S. at the Ruderman Family Foundation. She will be moderating the panel. Rob Freneck is the Editor-in-Chief of the Princeton Review and a national expert on colleges and higher education. He's an author, lecturer, and a former college admissions administrator. And Dr. Karen Singleton is Deputy Chief of Mental Health and Counseling Services at MIT. And Dr. Singleton served on the Mental Health Advisory Board for the survey. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for being here today. I'll start with a few quick thank yous. I know we don't have a lot of time. Thank you to my colleagues. We meet a lot over Zoom and sometimes in person. It's great to be here with you in New York. I would like to thank Learning Well, Marjorie, Dana, Anna, all the team. 3 years of an amazing partnership, and it just keeps getting better. It's amazing to see more and more participants and people committed to mental health on college campuses and in higher education, and it's due to the good work that you do. So thank you. Of course, I'd like to thank New York University for hosting us and its president and the Coalition for Transformational Education. And of course, our leadership at the foundation and specifically our trustee, Sharon Shapiro. Without their vision and without her commitment, not just leading the issue of mental health at our foundation, by leading by example through caring and empathy, I think that's the most important thing, values. That really makes our work meaningful for us as a team and hopefully for the people, the organizations, and the partners we work with. And of course, Emma, who is there, our program associate, who has been key to this work and planning this for the last 18 months. I'd also like to thank the members of the advisory committee to this project who are not here but were key to it, including Dr. Lipson, who should be here, I think, a little bit later. Oh, hi. Hi, Sarah. And of course, Dr. Singleton, Dr. Nadia Lopez from William James College, and Dr. Brett Harris from the University at Albany. So I won't do much of the talking. This was the majority of my talk. I will let the experts speak and share more about this exciting project. I will share that there's a one-pager in your folders with key findings from the survey, as well as a QR code that you can scan and go directly to the Princeton Review website, where you'll have all the information, the survey itself, and of course you're welcome to reach out to us or to Princeton Review if you would like to see the survey or take a deeper dive into the findings and information. Our foundation believes that youth is leadership. We believe that in youth there is agency. We believe not in telling kids and youth what to do, but listening and providing guidance and support and tools on how to achieve their goals and where they want to reach as a group, as a generation. And that's no different for our work on mental health. About 4 years ago, we decided to partner with an organization, in this case it's the Princeton Review, to create a change in awareness, to create new language around mental health, to really utilize the agency of youth because they are speaking more about their own well-being and mental health. But how do we bridge that gap from understanding yes, I want to take care of my mental health as a young adult. What does that mean when I go to college? What tools, platforms, what toolkit is at my disposal? Even if there are things available for me on campus, how do I access them? How do I overcome stigma? These were all goals that we had in mind when we thought about this national initiative and when we found this wonderful partner with the Princeton Review to really bring this to life. And we wanted to try and integrate mental health into that process of choosing your path in higher ed. How do we integrate that into the conversation and into the process for students as well as for families? And we just completed our first year and released the findings of the survey. And this is a multi-year project. This was the first year, but we have a few more to come, hopefully. So things are progressing very, very well. You can see in the one-pager the number of universities who responded, our response rate, and all that information. And I'm sure Rob and Karen will discuss it today as well. But with the few minutes we have today, I really want to try and focus the questions, with your permission, of course, on some of the findings, and then how do we really focus on dissemination and implementation? What are the challenges, and how we can help you as presidents and individuals who are leading mental health culture in your institutions really help us shape, refine, use these findings on your campuses and really bring the attention of students and families and faculty to mental health. That was me not speaking most of the panel. So, to the questions, I have questions for both of you and some for individual questions, but please feel free to answer to whatever you see fit. And Rob, I'll start with you.
Okay.
I just explained how we saw the importance of this at the foundation.
Yeah.
What about Princeton Review? Did you identify any gaps, any needs? I mean, you've been focused on higher ed for years through your various projects.
Yeah, and Hannah, I appreciate being here, and Karen, and thank you all. My name is Rob Pranick, editor-in-chief of Princeton Review. This is my 25th year at Princeton Review, and I spend much of the academic year on the road, as I was telling folks at my table, talking to three groups. It's the holy trinity in my mind: college-bound students, their parents, and counselors helping them along the way. My dinner partner, Connie, last night, she and I were discussing this as well, this idea of hearing from college-bound students and their parents, particularly around mental health and wellness on campus. And we have an annual survey at the Princeton Review called College Hopes and Worries. This is the 22nd year that we've been collecting data in that regard. So we added a question, which I think you'll find interesting, the results of it. Asking college-bound students and their parents, a little over 13,000 of them, would you value having information on health, mental health, and well-being services at that school? And specifically, would that help you decide if that school is going to be a best fit for you? 89% of the respondents said, yes, it would. 53% out of that cohort said either strongly agree or I think strongly agree was 53% and 89% was the whole cohort. So to us at Princeton Review, and a big part of my job is to make sure that we're listening to those students, parents, and counselors, and then serving up resources to give them the vernacular to have confidence around the college process. And then, Hannah, when we first met you, it just seemed so in line with what we were hearing from the survey information. And then you helping us find Karen and the rest of the folks on our advisory board to fill in the gap of knowledge that we don't have with full-timers at the Princeton Review, but can bring in from a panel perspective. So that's my soliloquy to your question, but thank you. Yeah.
Can you be, just a quick follow-up, a bit more about the specific needs? So 89% responded, yes, this is of interest. Maybe break it down for us a little bit. What kind of needs does that meet that were not met before in previous surveys? What do they want to know?
A couple of different things, and this was in large part of the work from the board and the survey specifically. They wanted to know how administration was supporting their mental health on campus and overall well-being, and that was particularly from parents were noting the idea of staffing, that they were visible to students during the research process as well as once they matriculated as undergraduates. And then and we heard this again from some of the other speakers, this idea of peer-to-peer counseling, so understanding that, that resources were there, but then maybe feeling more comfortable with the peer-to-peer environment. So we continuously heard that in the survey, and that as I said before, I spend a lot of time with Cosmo students and their parents, and that does jibe with what we've continued to hear, at least anecdotally, from speaking events that we've been doing around the country.
Thank you. And Karen, just to continue along that line, how does that correspond with the needs you're seeing of students on campus, and how institutional response has evolved in recent years?
Well, when I think about the changes on campus, the landscape has changed enormously, and the students have changed. When I did this work with Zoe, 20 years ago, we've been doing this for a long, long time. People were focused on trying to staff the college counseling centers with as many clinicians as possible. And it's important for parents, for students going to college to know that, A, that's not what our goal is anymore. I mean, it's great to have as many people as possible, but we really want wellness and well-being to be woven into the fabric of the school. We also want them to make educated choices because the needs now are more complex. So we're seeing students who are coming to us who are reporting more bias, more trauma, more eating concerns, in addition to depression and anxiety. That means they're going to be touching more offices, and their expectations are going to be higher, and the expectations of their families are going to be higher. So they're going to need to make an educated decision. Is this college going to be a good fit for me? Is it going to be a good fit for my family? Are they going to have what I need? So it's not just about the academic environment anymore. It's about, is this college a place where I can get what I need out of it, and can the college deliver on what they're telling me they can do?
And just to follow up, as we structured the survey, and you and the other committee members were very much involved in the questions and the answers and how to ask and what not to ask. Maybe you can share a bit more about how this survey is unique compared to previous ones, whether it's what we asked or how we approached issues, and how does that correspond with those complex, overarching needs that really impact the system?
Certainly. So, Hannah, the way that I've traditionally thought about this is that it's been an opaque process. So when students and their family are trying to figure out the college path, they're really trying to make their best guess about fit, particularly students who have mental health concerns, and students who are honestly just concerned about where they're going to find their posse, their friends, like-minded people who will challenge them emotionally, socially. So what we wanted to do was provide access to students to really see behind the scenes. And there are ways that you actually can judge a school based on where they put their resources and how they think about mental health and well-being. The problem is that your typical person isn't going to know what that is, and why should they? We're all in this room discussing this all day. We discussed it yesterday. Most people are not thinking about this every day. I feel like I have the luxury and the pleasure of thinking about this every day, and I love it, but most people don't have that. So what we're doing is saying there are clues that you can have access to, that we can tell you about, that can help you make these decisions. So 2 quick examples. At MIT, everyone takes a course, and when I say everyone, I mean the staff, the faculty, everyone, the students, called Search Inside Yourself. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but we take it. And I think that it's important for people to know that the person working in financial aid, who you're going to be talking to about a very serious concern you might have where you might be distraught, or the librarian you're working with, has taken a class on mindfulness. It's important to know that someone who works in the bursar's office has taken that class. So I think there are clues to knowing how they're thinking about well-being, and those clues can become more accessible when you put it in this form.
Yeah, and maybe, Rob, you can share a few examples of some of the more practical tools or the language that this survey introduces, both to students and their families, as well as those university representatives who responded to it.
Yeah, of course, and I'm grateful for the 200 plus schools that had responded to the survey. We're hoping, again, to continue our commitment over the next year and grow that cohort from there. I think I can best address your question, Hannah, from the best fit perspective. As I said, I've been at the Princeton Review a long time, and that empowering of students to give them the vernacular around finding a school that's going to be the best fit for them. That is how we structure our entire editorial philosophy at the Princeton Review. For young people, plus families and counselors, but for young people to be able to talk confidently, speak confidently about the college process by showing them that it is okay to speak about issues around financial aid, one of the biggest stressors for students and families. And then, of course, mental health and overall well-being. And I believe that because we have such great reach, and right now, and I was sharing this with folks at my table, 1 out of every 2 college-bound students will use a Princeton Review service. I say that just to note that, and I'm proud of that because I've been at Princeton Review for a long time. But that does place a great deal of accountability on my department to push out content and make resources available to them, near all of which are without cost, so that they can have that confidence to have a conversation of substance with their counselors back at home, with counselors on your admission team when they ultimately visit your school virtually or otherwise. And I think that our survey together is simply an extension of that.
Yeah, and as you were structuring the survey, many ideas came to mind on what are mental health services versus well-being, and how do we group them together or apart, and really create exhaustive lists of various surveys and tools and programs and initiatives and peer support and counseling center and external and connecting between offices. I think it's 52 or 59 questions that we have, and they're very, very detailed. So for those of you who answered it, thank you. It was long. For those of you who haven't, we will send it to you. Please respond to it. Which also goes to the higher response rate, the more there's buy-in for more presidents, more universities and colleges, the better we can do in terms of providing service to students, their families, and support your process as you strategize around the role of mental health on campus. Thinking forward about that next step, I mentioned it's a multi-year partnership. I know we just started the work on the second round of the survey, and as we know, the first year in philanthropy is always a pilot, and we always try to learn from it and see if we can scale up and do better. What can we do better? What are we focusing on now? What are some ideas that come to mind that we either didn't have enough space to include, or now with everybody mentioning the last year and a half, I won't, how are we kind of approaching that in a way that resonates with those responding to the survey?
Well, I'll say as someone who was thinking a lot about the questions, one of my concerns was that I didn't want schools to feel penalized if they didn't have the resources to have the services that we were looking at and asking questions about. So we were very careful to say, what kind of prevention services do you offer? What kind of peer services do you offer? And to make it very clear that it could be a homegrown program, it could be a program that's been around for a dozen years, it could be something that's been a startup that was been around for 1 year. And we just wanted to make it very open. And I think that's something that I would like to look into more, figuring out, are there ways that people are doing things that we could learn from, and that it wouldn't just be a one-way street, but maybe there are other schools who could learn from this information that we're gathering.
Agreed, and I think and totally applaud, Karen, what you're saying. I think where I can be most helpful, and we were chatting about this before, we spend a lot of time presenting at conferences focused on college admission in a large part, but not exclusively. But I think getting this information out, particularly in front of admission teams that are representing your many schools, allowing it to be in a format of a panel discussion to understand not only the survey tool, but the end result of that, and then, again, giving them the confidence that completing the survey would be of value to them and likely a resource for students in finding that idea of fit.
And for both of you, a request, a message to those universities who have not participated yet, or if there are any hesitations on why not to do it. Everything new is there are hesitations, of course, but now we're not new, we're 1 year old.
Yeah, that's right.
What would you say to encourage or motivate, that's a better word, participants in the room here and also colleagues who are not in the room, but I'm sure we'll hear about this after.
I think just quickly, what I've heard again and again is that there are so many common questions, and Michael said it so well this morning, principal from the school in the Bronx, that these questions are near uniform for high school students moving on to college, and that feels like an opportunity to then cast a spotlight on that and to be unapologetic about addressing it. So that would be my take.
And Hannah, this is probably not the answer you expected, and it takes it a little bit left field, but I would say for those of you who aren't clinicians or those of you who haven't worked in a college counseling center, collegiate mental health is a field, and I feel that as someone who contributed to the survey questions, that it's a way of looking at our field and understanding it in a more in-depth way, and understanding what people who do this work, who are on the ground, really value. And I think that it tells you who really needs to be at the table. So there are people that I work with in my counseling center who they're at the table when it comes to making decisions about how long the curriculum should be, when the break should be, should we have a midnight breakfast? Is it a good idea to have a midnight breakfast? Because maybe students shouldn't be up at midnight. You know, all kinds of things. And, you know, these are the kinds of questions that I would encourage everyone to engage the clinicians at the counseling center around and not just use them to see students. It leads to burnout, it's not sustainable, but also to use them as consultants because everyone has a role in this on campus. And I think that it gives that overview. It really tells you what we're thinking about and what it means to do this work on a really integrated and higher level.
Thank you. Thank you. This is wonderful. It's very exciting. It's great to see this happening. It's a dream of our leadership for many years, and it's the best partners that we could have. Marjorie, am I opening up for questions?
We're going to do the Slido for questions.
Okay, no questions. But thank you very much, everyone.